Beautiful Bombs.
Hello and welcome back once again for another episode of Beautiful Bombs, the show that explores some of the most amazing and some of the most unsuccessful singles in pop and rock music history. I'm your host, Adam Marsland, and let's get right to it. Tonight's song is Ego by Elton John. Producers Elton John and Clive Franks. Writers Elton John and Bernie Taupin. In the first half of the 1970s, Elton John was the undisputed ruler of pop, with a string of huge hit albums and singles on both sides of the Atlantic. However, by 1976, the pressures and workload had begun to take its toll. After the release of the moody, challenging double album Blue Moves, Elton elected to take a break from music and touring, focusing instead on his personal life and his new duties as chairman of the Watford Football Club. He also split temporarily with longtime lyricist Bernie Taupin and with longtime producer Gus Dudgeon. In early 1978, Elton returned to the studio with an old Taupin lyric he had developed into a complex roller coaster ride of a song called Ego, written as a commentary on the excesses of celebrity. For the first time, Elton was producing himself with longtime soundman Clive Franks assisting, and the resulting track had a cleaner, leaner, and meaner sound, seemingly in keeping with the new wave that was beginning to dominate England's airwaves. It also had some of the quirky, biting sarcasm more closely associated with someone like Elvis Costello, albeit filtered through Elton's classical sensibilities. Elton had so much faith in his challenging 4-minute mini-opera that he commissioned director Michael Lindsay Hogg to shoot a promotional film that would be shown as a preview in theaters. It was one of the earliest examples of a modern-style music video, and it showed not only had the music changed, but so had Elton. Gone were the glamorous outfits and outsized sunglasses. Elton was now virtually unrecognizable, with brown hair, contact lenses, and a business suit decked out with an appropriately punk-influenced color scheme. In some scenes of the video, Elton looked positively menacing. As Elton's first new recording since his retirement, expectations were high for Ego, but it shockingly became Elton's lowest charting single in 7 years, peaking at an identical number 34 on both sides of the Atlantic. Some blamed the single's complexity and oddity, others Elton's admission of his bisexuality a few years prior. Regardless, it was a crushing disappointment for Elton, who believed it to be one of his finest efforts. And he was right. One of the reasons I wanted to feature Ego on this show, besides the fact that it's just sort of sums up what the show's all about, a song that was really great and just tanked. It was a song that really hit me pretty hard because when it came out I was a kid. I didn't really know Elton John yet. He would go on to become one of my favorite artists of all time. This was just boom, 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 boom. And if you're a hyperactive kid like I was, this was just like, whoa, now I'm paying attention. I'm not bored. I'm into this. There was no internet in those days, and I wanted to know what album this was on, and it actually wasn't on an album. It was a one-off single. Elton did do an album later that year called A Single Man, but he chose to have it be all songs with a new lyricist, a guy named Gary Osborne, so he pretty much didn't use the stuff that he had written with Taupin or that he'd actually done on his own, which is too bad because if you check out the bonus tracks on the updated version of A Single Man, which includes Ego and a number of B-sides and other recordings he did right at this time, early 1978, it's some of his most interesting work, some kind of dark material. In fact, I would argue that those 5 bonus tracks just about raise A Single Man to the level of his previous work in the 70s. But you really can tell that at this point, both Elton John and lyricist Bernie Taupin were just sick of the whole rock star deal. They were seeing through a lot of the excesses and they just weren't into it. And there is, besides a little bit of genuine snarl, I mean, not like we would expect from like an Elvis Costello record or a Buzzcocks record, but a little bit of grit to the guitar, which I believe was Tim Renwick. There's so much confidence to the performance, and it's a really tricky song. I've performed it myself, and it's quite a roller coaster ride. That's the only way to describe it. But there's so much confidence in Elton's delivery, that sense of him being fed up with the whole deal, the kind of mindset that made him want to walk away from the music industry. It's just one of my favorite records ever done by anybody, really, because I like my pop music to come at me thick and fast with new things, new ideas. I like a pop record to take me to a new place, to keep me engaged, to keep me guessing. You don't hear that in a lot of pop music these days. A lot of times it's pretty much the same 4 chords over and over again, just with a different melody for the verse and the chorus. But this, you're just boom, 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 boom. It's just coming right at you. I love it. And I wish we had more songs like this these days. Almost a new wave mini-opera, Ego consists of many short sections in quick succession that barely give the listener a chance to catch their breath. First comes a minor-keyed two-chord pattern reminiscent of silent movie thriller soundtrack. Then the minor key maintains through a more conventional rock section. Suddenly, the music shifts into a lilting, almost operatic cadence. The rock beat briefly returns, then leads to an almost violent back and forth descending chord sequence that leads us right back to the beginning. In only 52 seconds, we've already passed through more than half a dozen distinct music passages. It all repeats once again, and then the beat falls away and we're dropped into a new dreamy chorus that gradually builds into an intense series of modulations, culminating with Elton pounding out dissonant chords and bellowing, "I had to grow to prove my ego." We're then immediately dropped back into the whole roller coaster ride again, rocketing through this non-stop dizzying series of changes with one section modified to a carnival rhythm until Elton reaches those final pounding dissonant chords again, ending suddenly on the word ego, drifting away in a wall of reverb like a shot going off. Fade, curtain. Ego, of course, did not end Elton John's career, and though he never quite returned to his early 70s heights artistically or commercially, by 1979 he was back in the top 10 in America and the UK, and continued to rack up hit singles, hit albums, and eventually award-winning movie soundtracks and artistic collaborations right up to the present day. From a scrappy young session musician to a pop superstar and now a bona fide legend and gay icon, Elton's life and music have gone through many changes and encompassed many triumphs. But even stacked up against all that, his 1978 failed single Ego is believed by many fans, including myself, to be perhaps his finest ever single recording. In encompassing so many ideas into one short, powerful single that, rather like the Beach Boys' Heroes and Villains, was just too much for many to take in, Elton showed a level of compositional ambition and daring that demonstrated his willingness to take chances, explore new approaches, and leave his celebrity comfort zone. A willingness he would demonstrate again and again in the future. As a song that reached high, touched the stars, and then crashed to the ground, Ego is another shining example of a beautiful bomb. So that ought to do it for another episode of Beautiful Bombs. I'm your host, Adam Marsland. I would love to know in the comments your ideas for future episodes of songs that were not very successful, but were really kind of great. And as always, remember also that I too am a musician, and if you enjoy the music that we feature on this show, there is more than a slight possibility you might like some of the stuff that I've been involved with. So if you check the first comment, you'll see a link to that, along with today's featured song. And that about does it. Remember to like and subscribe, do all that groovy YouTube stuff, and I'll see you on the next episode of Beautiful Bombs.